Yeah.
Okay. The presentation tonight is really a draft presentation. I've been working on this capital plan for a while. I gave everybody the latest and greatest draft, which made a few corrections to previous drafts, some edits, a little additional information in some areas. This presentation, again, is considered draft. It's made for public consumption in terms of a presentation to the public, so it doesn't have like all the nitty-gritty detail that's in the document. So I'm very much interested in not only, obviously giving this presentation, but critiques on it as well. Anything you think should be added to it, deleted from it, emphasized, or anything of that matter. So we're starting. So what is capital plan? So pretty straightforward. Capital plan's simply a plan that identifies capital needs for construction. And this, how the projects will be funded, whether they're borrowings, grants, surplus, type of things. And then what are the effects of that plan? Basically, in this case, it's going to be on the ratepayer.
Can you hold on for a second? Ricky, we usually record our things. Can you set up the video camera for us?
Yeah, you want me to go?
Yeah, we usually do our work. Do you mind just holding on for
I
a
can
second?
rewind.
Perfect.
Wait for a minute.
No, damn it, it's lump sum.
Yeah, by the side slide.
I thought Ricky had set it up. I know.
No problem.
The close one. Yeah. Close.
Anything else on the agenda?
There's the main thing.
That's it? Wow.
Well, he showed us a lot of difference. He gave me part of the stuff was kind of half. It's fine, so he said, but he was putting out.
Oh, wait. You really good champion.
Yeah, or just.
I didn't know if anybody got post-it notes. I should have
So,
good.
this is good for the.
Should have done this anyway.
Face that way, right?
No, you'll have to get over it.
You want over by the water
Or
tower?
have them move over there.
No, I understand.
It's a water presentation, if you're over there in the water tower.
Rick, we can certainly
Crank
move.
up
Where do you
the
need to
thing.
set your,
And plug it in over there and
Great,
crank it up over their heads.
we can
It'll be
move.
good
Where
to
do you
go.
want? No, that's all right. I just,
Really?
Get my good side of it. Okay, I was well prepared.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's yeah. I was gonna skip.
yeah, that's what I was
Straight back, right.
Public use, the consumption. The consumer. I don't as a kid, it was cheap.
Pretty sure it's lighting isn't doing me any favors.
Oh, was it that bad?
No, Ron, lighting never does you any favors.
Need some powder?
up top, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Really whitewashes out the image.
Cutting down on the glare. Can you see that?
good to go?
How do I look? Good?
Perfect, thank you.
It's available.
Okay. We're back in business, okay.
Wait, let's see what if
Well,
it's better
that
versus
was
the
right
lights
back
on
there.
or off.
Oh, yeah, it might be a little, yeah.
Can you still see, or is that?
I can see fine.
He's got a computer.
Yeah, but do you have to read anything off your notes or anything, or?
What note? Damn, look at notes. So anyway, so as I mentioned, this is basically a draft presentation regarding the capital plan that we've been working on here the last many months. And again, I'm very interested in any feedback from the board, Jim, Pat, of course. So, where are we going here next? So, what is capital plan? So, obviously this slide is just to, present that to the public. Identify priority projects, how are they going to be financed or funded, and what are the effects on the ratepayer. In this case, it's going to be based on the property tax rate, the ad valorem rates in the various districts. Why water and wastewater? Well, it's over 50% of the town's budget. It's a big part of the town's budget. And water and wastewater are vital to the growth and stability of the town. I mean, it's driven this town for many years when they started on Route 3 and the commercial districts and built it over the years through different programs. So the discussion is going to be broken down into two parts: water capital plan, sewer capital plan. We'll kind of tie it all together at the end. So this is the water capital plan, and there's two districts in the town for water. There's a consolidated water district, which is the largest water district in the town, and then the base water district, which is, of course, the former Air Force Base. This is just a list of projects that are included as priority projects, and some of these have been discussed for many years. The existing water storage facilities, there's 9 tanks in the town. They're all in need of work. The town did have an evaluation done, and I want to say it was that last year, Scott, or 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. They need anything from painting, some structural repairs, not significant structural repairs, but fixing ladders and vents and those types of things. USG was a company that put together this budget of $7 million. This is by far the largest chunk of the capital plan in terms of the water, consolidated water district. Salmon River Road is an extension of a water main from I think it's from Archie Bordeaux. It is from Archie Bordeaux. Down to Salmon River Road. That's the little area that's got 13 houses served down a well. They're not connected to the water supply. They don't have fire protection. They are in the consolidated district, however. So this would actually connect them to the district, give them basically everything everybody else in the district has in terms of quality water, fire protection. It also eliminates a major headache on the part of the water department having to maintain that little well, and the health department has been pushing to get these folks on the consolidated water district supply. Quarry Road water, that's a project that is a redundancy project. Right now, all water in the north side of town is fed from a 12-inch water line that goes up Melody Lane, under 374, up into Wallace Hill, and Trade Road, Cumberland Head, and everything else is all fed from there. So it's a major chunk of the town that only has a single connection. This would be a redundant connection to bring water to the other side of 374. So if anything so if Melody Lane has to be shut down for any reason, a water main break, whatever, we have backup there. Is there anything else you want on that one? Yeah, I also think they'll help water quality a little bit, because you've got, you have water being able to move around a little bit better. And then the base water district, one thing they really don't have down there is water storage. There's one tank at Bluff Point by the college that services the entire area. That's a 800,000 gallon tank. That tank doesn't have the ability to be taken down very easily because the college needs it for fire protection. The This tank would be on Pleasant Ridge Road, up by the intersection of Carbide Road, by the sanitation, Northern Sanitation, I believe is what it is. It's about the same size tanks, 750,000 gallon tank. That will provide much needed fire flow to the bays, and also actually the nearby Schluter Corporation. They're ever expanding. And this is by far the biggest project that the base water district faces, basically replacement of the water mains. On the county airport facility is, I think everybody's aware, all of the water mains have been replaced by the county. All the transite lines are gone. They're all new ductile, they're all ductile now, right?
Yep.
The water mains they replaced are the same water mains we, well, similar to the ones we have in the base water district. They've reached the end of their useful life. Their transite lines, those are usually 50 to 60 years. We're beyond that.
They did most of what they did with grant money?
They- Yes, they got money from the airport. Yeah, the FAA, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't do that. I wish we could. But, you know, there's constant breaks and repairs going on down there. And some of it, I don't even know if we need to replace. So, right. And then we have what are non-specific, non-district specific improvements. I mean, they kind of apply to everybody somewhat equally. One is a new source of supply or additional source of supply. In particular, where the town's kind of bumping their head on the capacity of the existing water supply. We're undergoing a new, searching for new well water supply. We have a potential site there on May Courier Park. The town presently has out to bid testing of that well, which I think that's up in a couple of weeks right now. So, depending, we don't really know if that location is going to be it, but any new source, you know, putting in a new well, new treatment, connection to the system, and we just estimated that that's going to be about $2 million. So by the time you're all done, figuring multiple wells, different things. So the Bullis Road Pump Station, that's a project that's actually been on the books for years. It's designed. That is the replacement of basically the existing booster pumps down in that station with new, modern, larger VFD-driven pumps. Electrical savings, higher capacity. I think it'll allow you to take better advantage of what you can produce at that well site.
Plus another big piece of that is the kind of integration between all of them, because right now we kind of manually run off of well one. This would allow booster pumps, wells, and towers to all talk with really a computerized SCADA system, which would be part of the project.
Right. In fact, we'll
It's kind of
touch
built
base
into
on
that
that in a second, right? Well 2 testing, it's a small project. Well 2 is down at the Bullis Road site. It's inactive at this point. There's always been a concern that it somehow would affect well 6, which is the workhorse supply well in town.
Plus it's because the plumbing's tied in.
And the plumbing's tied together, so
Startup.
this would just basically allow the town to separate the plumbing and do some testing on well 2 to see if we can get any additional source water there. Metering, the town's been replacing water meters throughout the town. We figured that another 6 years would be needed to replace them at roughly $200,000 a year. And the reason to do it in pieces is so all the meters don't need to be replaced again at the same time in the future. You know, you have your lifespan of 15, what is it now, 15 years. So it would be, you know, just a rolling repair at that point rather than a, oh my God, we gotta do all these at once. It should also, metering will also capture lost, I think, revenue. You know, because as meters get older, they actually turn slower
Slow down, yeah.
and under-record. So the new meters would take care of that. They'd also allow the town to read the meters extremely quickly. They'd all be radio read meters. Basically, they drive by in the truck and it gets the meters read. It also can identify leaks in houses. You know, if somebody seems to be having a leak, if there's a history in the meters, they can go back and look to see what might be going on.
Scott, has that metering been done in like a priority status, or?
Yeah, we've started with, kind of when I got here, none of the meters have been touched in quite a while, so we kind of started with really the very old meters. They were 4-digit. There was also meters that our new software wouldn't even read because of their age, so we had to replace those. And then we kind of went with the highest consumptions areas, and then now we're trying to do it. We're to the point where we've kind of worked through all those priorities, and now we're doing to try to convert entire neighborhoods over at one time, so when we take advantage of that radio read activity, so we don't have a mix of going up and touching the side of the house and, you know, picking it up roadside, that we want to convert whole areas so we can do just drive-bys through those areas and gain that efficiency as soon as possible, and then convert the other areas of the town over systematically.
Another large expense is additional water storage. Town does need additional storage. It's similar to the capacity issue. You know, we're struggling to keep the tanks full, the additional storage capacity. This is a 2 million gallon storage tank. Will help alleviate some of those stress periods. And SCADA, this is what, I put 0 there because it's kind of involved with all the other projects. But SCADA, Facility Communications, that allows the town to basically monitor and in some cases operate facilities, you know, right from here. So it's a very good tool to keep track of what's going on, to decide if somebody needs to go out in the field or not, you know, middle of the night type of stuff. You know, I think right now your folks can take the computer home or have it at home and can actually, you know, instead of going out into the field at 2 in the morning, look at it and see what's going on and decide, okay, now I'll just switch it over to this pump 2, say, and we can do it in the morning. So it saves a lot on expense in terms of overtime, those types of things. It's also good data collector in terms of, you know, what's been going on and historically in these things. And by the way, this SCADA equipment's been incorporated in any newer projects that have been done. You know, like for instance, we just finished the Route 3 and Sorrel Avenue pump stations. They are SCADA capable. And then asset management, and actually this is something Scott really wanted to make sure he put in here, that you have a huge investment in this water system, an asset management system to keep track of that. Helps with identifying routine maintenance and what needs to be done. For instance, you know, what pumps need to be looked at when and all those things. Not to mention just knowing how much of everything you have all in one place. And basically that's the type of system that, you know, we figured you would purchase and either hire an intern or somebody to put in the base data and then go from there. So all that is up to a little over $18 million in improvements. Big chunk of change. So the town also has, we also have $18 million over here we have to pay for somehow. We also have existing indebtedness in terms of bond anticipation notes and bonds. This is just a list of what that indebtedness is now. It totals a little over $3.7 million, 1.3 million in bands, and roughly 2.5 in bonds. And you'll notice, except for the Cumberland Head Water, all the bonds are pretty small at this point. They've been around a long time, and many of them are nearing their term of the loans. This graph just represents your annual payments on your existing indebtedness. As you can see, in 2016, we're paying a little over $700,000 a year. That's going to drop by about $100,000 next year and stay steady for the next 3 years, and take another significant drop in the year 2020. That's important because, you know, as we're looking at taking on new indebtedness, you know, we're going to be seeing other indebtedness drop off the books. So you kind of have this little balancing act of trying to keep the tax rate down versus, you know, use this to our advantage to do that.
Can you help me, how much do we spend typically per year in capital improvements in the water district?
I guess in terms of true capital funds that are set aside for corporate plans, we haven't done any,
No, but I mean, what's our investment in the capital structure, the infrastructure on a yearly basis?
Well, I guess, that's, you mean in what it costs to maintain, or just simply, we
Yeah,
spent?
well, maintenance and new investment together.
Oh, what's your total budget?
it's 6 million for the operating budget.
Water and sewer combined?
Yeah.
So how much would that be per year that we're putting in?
I guess I'm not.
6 billion. in
Well,
terms of-
most times they come to have
That's like capital
Capital budget.
improvements, that's
Yeah.
operations and maintenance.
Right, that's right. So in your budget, you've been spending now in base water, about 250,000 in the sewer lining for the last few years.
Yeah.
You just did the
We did the 2 lift stations.
2 lift stations,
At 200.
and that's about it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you haven't carried any of
Would
this.
we be better off?
Well, that's part of why we're here, is that there has been no capital spending historically over the last several years.
Like new capital spending.
But I guess the question I've had, we're talking about a lump of maybe 18 million. Would we have been better off spending maybe $1 million a year? Or 2 million a year, 3, whatever?
Are you talking about years ago, Jeff?
I'm talking about what we're talking about.
I don't see how you can do it out of your budget. You'd have to increase your operating budget, you know.
Plus, we can't take advantage of some of the, ratepayers also.
Right, if we, that raises a good point, we should probably get on here. Well, you know what, I'd like to come back to that point.
Okay.
If that's okay, because when we get into how this thing gets taxed and things, and then we'll bounce back to that, I think. So anyway, basically we have a declining payments on our existing debt. And by year 2023, it's almost nothing. I think that's $15,000 a year down there. The town also has reserve funds that have been building over the years. And broken down by district, the Consolidated Water District only has a little over $3 million. The Base Water District has about, $860,000. We look at those funds as available for use, with the exception that, at least in the plan as written thus far, we would hold back $500,000 in each of those districts as a capital reserve. I shouldn't say capital reserve, but a reserve fund, should we need it for something. And the rest would be available to use in this capital plan. So we have roughly almost $3 million of funds available that exist right now in the town's bank accounts somewhere. Pat knows. So then we get into tax rate analyses, and we get into what we call cost sharing or no cost sharing. And cost sharing concept is that everything the town of Plattsburgh spends on its water system benefits everybody that's connected to the water system. That includes the town of Scholar Falls and the town of Beekmantown at this point, and any other future user. So I don't really detail this here in the presentation. It's in the document. There's a couple ways you can do cost sharing. Right now, the town has this antiquated system of points that have been used since Ed Maskowski came up with that system way back when. It was great at the time because the town had all these little districts and it was all an internal accounting process. That's not true anymore. You have basically 2 larger districts, and the point system is very complex and difficult to manage. So we recommend either going on a consumption basis type system to share costs, or a number of customers. And simply put, it's everybody has a percentage of the pie at that point. So if let's just say the total budget's $1 million, and Beekmantown uses 5% of the water, they pay 5% of the $1 million. That's the concept of cost sharing. These are decisions the town board has to look at, as we go forward. And we just look at it both ways, just to give you an idea of what difference it makes. So, in the cost sharing analysis, the assumptions, obviously, there's no sharing of the costs. This is a 3-year implementation strategy for these projects. The borrowing's 20 years at 4%, which is probably fairly conservative to do right now. And just the point on borrowing is obviously whomever the town uses to do that, you know, might make sense to use a longer term, you know, or a shorter term, depending on the interest rates. But the financial manager would have to work through that. I'm also assuming, and this is to be conservative, that there's no financial assistance through grants or low interest loans. I mean, there are those things out there, as we know, through EFC, Environmental Facilities Corporation. From time to time, you know, some grant programs pop up that might make sense to apply for. Those are things we just have to keep an eye to in the future. This is the tax rate, so this does not incorporate operational increases. So, you know, as time goes on, salaries in the department go up, or new equipment's needed for some reason. It doesn't include any of those increases. This is simply the tax rate for debt service. And the last assumption is that the reserves are applied here, that the money that's available, the town has right now, is incorporated into this. So with no cost sharing, this graph here just gives you an idea of what happens to your tax rate. This is not the use rate, this is the tax rate that will be applied to your January tax bill for your special district taxes. Right now, it's just a touch under $1, it's 9.970, I believe. And in 3 years, 2019, it goes to about $1.62, roughly. What that means to the cost of the average cost of the homeowner, it's actually the cost of the average homeowner assessment, which is $150,000 a year. And what, you know, right now, that house pays $146. The highest year of this plan is in 2019, you'd be paying $223. And then, as you can see, it slowly starts to drop off over the years. And again, that's because our debt service from our existing debt is slowly dropping off. So by the time you get out to 2026, you're almost at the same price point. I know that's, you know, 10 years down the road, but I think that's pretty good. The base water district, without cost sharing, of course, the point here is the base water district doesn't share with anybody anyway. There's no connections to any other water districts outside the town. They are connected to the city as an emergency backup, but there's no water going anywhere else. So they go from $7 and say roughly, what's that, $7.30 to $9.20 roughly for their tax rate. So with cost sharing, it's basically all the same assumptions, but now we're going to spread out the cost to a couple other districts. You have the Woods Mills and Schuyler Falls, Morrisonville and Schuyler Falls, Macy Lane and Schuyler Falls, and the Spellman Road and Route 9 districts in Beekman. So here's what happens when you start to have, you know, spread that cost out. Again, we're starting at 97 cents per thousand in 2016, and it goes up to $1.56 instead of $1.62, if you remember that. So it does reduce the cost. Again, we started at $146 in 2016, and in the highest year of the plan, 2019, it goes up to $229, then back down to $150. And the base water district, again, is the same. There's no cost sharing, so that basically unaffected. That'll go up to you know, roughly the $9.50 or whatever that was. So then we get to the sewer district, the wastewater side of things. We have the consolidated sewer district and the base sewer district. Again, just two districts. And the improvements needed. The town has a lot of lift stations in need of upgrade, repair, replacement. You know, most of these are all in the 70s. We took care of a few of them just recently with the Route 3 and the Sorrel Avenue projects. But there's a lot more to be done, and those are estimated about $3.4 million to do that. The Katyville wastewater treatment plant, That was a plant that was installed, I think it was 96. It was a plant that was originally owned and operated through Wyeth Earth. They were updating their facilities. They had these extra units. The town said, we'll take them. And they were modified to work for Cadyville. They're operationally difficult. There's much easier ways to handle that small amount of flow, basically what's called a recirculating sand filter. It's very simple to operate, and basically it's just a pump, and depending on what you gotta do for chlor, dechlor, or disinfection of the outflow. And Cliff Haven sewer lining. Those again are old sewers, transite pipes, the town's always down there fixing them. It makes sense to line those sewers similar to what we've done on the base over the last 4 years. It's a relatively inexpensive fix to a significant problem. Eliminates a lot of inflow and infiltration, which of course leads to higher sewer treatment costs. And in the base sewer district, we have to repair manholes. And again, this is part of the ongoing sewer lining project that's going on down there. Right now is the last phase of lining that the town just started with Skinnex. But what has not been done are the manholes. And this is about, costs about $4,000 to line a manhole. You're not going to replace these. These are deep brick manholes, and to replace them all would be probably times 5, right, at least, you know. And then the Connecticut Avenue pump station, the Bluff Point pump station. Those are 2 pump stations that are about 300 feet apart. Obviously, at the time the Bluff Point station was built, the base was in operation, and the Connecticut Avenue station was for the base, and they certainly weren't going to share that. It's an old station, Connecticut. Well, they're both old, but Connecticut's pretty old. And the concept here is to eliminate the Connecticut Avenue pump station and rehab the Bluff Point station to accept flows from both areas and have a single pump station. Obviously gets rid of a lot of, again, that Connecticut station's very old. You know, it's a lot of work down there. So that'll basically eliminate the need for that. And then again, we have non-specific improvements. Here again, it's a SCADA concept. All these pump stations can be fitted with the SCADA communications equipment to track and monitor and operate, and asset management again on the sewer side. So, that's about a little over $6 million. Again, here's the indebtedness for the sewer district. Sewer district's full on bonds, about $2.4 million. For some reason, I'm missing a number here, though. The biggest one of those is the Champlain Park sewer, or wastewater treatment plant replacement. We'll update that. Here's the annual wastewater debt service payments. As you can see, they're much different than the water side, where the water was declining. You know, this kind of has a nice little roller coaster look to it a little bit. So you don't have a whole lot of benefit from reduced debt service payments. There's some, but again, it fluctuates depending on how the bonds were written at the time. The base sewer district has no indebtedness. Again, capital reserves is about $3.4 million altogether, and for the sewer, same concept, keep $500,000 in those accounts. Leaves about $2.4 million available for improvements. So on the tax rate side, there is no cost sharing in the sewer districts. We don't provide sewer service to anybody else outside the town, so we don't need to worry about that. Again, this is a 3-year implementation, same long terms, 20 years, 4%, ignoring any grants or financial assistance. no operational increases, and all the reserve monies are applied. I shouldn't say all the reserve monies are applied, a portion of the reserve monies are applied. So on the consolidated sewer district, the tax rate jumps from about 0.3, I think it's 36 cents right now, up to just under 70 cents. And it'll stay steady, pretty much, similar to the existing debt curve we saw before. Drops a little bit in 10 years. And this just gives you an idea of what that means. The average homeowner, again, $150,000 assessment, pays $57 in taxes. That would go up to $101 in the highest year. This again is 2019. Have to check that. And in 2026, down to about $78. On the base side, they go from a little over $5 to a little under $6 per year. And we don't provide any, by the way, I should have mentioned it earlier, we don't provide an average for the base water sewer district because there are no residents in those districts. And just, so there's really nothing to provide an average for because they're just wildly different assessments based on the businesses that are there. So it wouldn't really mean anything. So this is just a summary of ad valorem rates in each of the districts. Just using the consolidated water district there, the top line, the current rate is 97 cents, shown on the charts. The highest rate in this plan that will be seen is $1.48 per thousand. That occurs in year 2019. That's an increase of a little over 50 cents a thousand. For an additional cost to the average homeowner of $78 a year. The base, again, there's no average issue there, but they go up by about $2 a thousand. Consolidated sewer goes up about 30 cents a thousand for an average increase of $44 to the average homeowner. And the base sewer goes up by about 46 cents a thousand from their current rate. And again, these are all based on assessed valuations. It's important, and Jim comes back to your question a little bit in terms of, can we do this within our operating budget? Can we do this? Do we do this with debt? If we do it within our operating budget, we will not be able to tax exempt certain tax exempt properties, particularly so the county. We could not. They don't pay on anything except the use rate and the debt service. So this, puts them into the mix along with everybody else.
They're a big part of the base constituents.
Very big bill, yeah. And this is just a summary of basically the program and where the money comes from. So we're looking at almost $24 million in improvements. We have 4 in reserves. Some of the money does come from operating, and that was going to be the meters, because that's like a $200,000 per year type thing for 6 years. And I think, and we're just going to, the asset management program, so that come out of that. Which means you have to go out and borrow, or otherwise find, $18.6 million. That's the additional funds that will be required for this plan. And I think that was might go back and really that was it. I'm just going to go back though, because I think that this chart really is significant when you're looking at this program in terms of the impact to the ratepayer. It's a lot of money, understood, but the impact to the ratepayer is not tremendous. And again, that's taking advantage of the declining debt you have now and the ability to use some of those reserve funds. So I'd be interested in questions, comments.
I guess just going back to the one I had originally,
Yep.
would we be better off just putting money in, or like, say like maybe we haven't, say, see a tank, we haven't done anything on it in 10 years, another tank, we better say, well, let's do 1 tank a year, some type of rotation as opposed to doing everything at once?
Well, you could. I'm not sure what the dollar effect is there. The other thing is, and I really should have mentioned at the beginning too, is we're kind of in a unique position right now. Interest rates are extremely low. So money is relatively cheap. So if you do it in your operating budget I guess, you're not really talking about doing your operating budget. Are you saying, let's go out and borrow $1 million and do a tank?
Well, I'm just saying.
Or would you say, let's
use
collect $1 million and do a
It would
tank?
seem like, say, in the highway department, the trucks and any business, you try and you bring in one truck when one is going out and taking it, as opposed to saying, this year we're gonna replace 18 trucks.
It's kind of like the meters.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is these tanks they can't wait, we can't wait 9 years to get to the last tank.
No, I'm
5
just
years.
saying.
I understand. I mean, but these are sort of immediate needs. I think it's a more expensive way to do it, because then you're fighting not only potential higher rates, obviously you're gonna have cost increases, it's just inflationary costs. Right now, it's not too bad, but you have those expenses.
But in the future, do you think we should have a plan where we maintain things?
Oh,
I'll answer that, yes.
no, that's, I guess that's understood in all this, right? I mean, it's, unfortunately, not a lot of money, we'll just talk about things. I mean, and by the way, you can only maintain things for so long before they just need to. Well, I'm just saying this because I think it's a good general comment, Jim. That things like a water storage tank, okay, you're gonna have that repeated maintenance. But at some point, for instance, some of those pump stations just, they're just old,
Or replace mine, not necessarily.
Yeah, no, I understood, yeah.
Just
Right.
saying,
But, yeah, I mean, I
if
think that.
there's 10, like I said, maybe use the example, highway department, if you have 10 trucks and there's the oldest truck, maybe get rid of that one, you put a new one in. I mean, just kind of a
Right.
logical
You
plan.
could stretch this out, you could do that. I think you lose the benefit of,
I'm not saying stretch it out necessarily this
I mean, I
time.
think this one, the plan that I'm kind of trying to attack is that really we need to bring everything up to speed so that it meets current standards, and that then to go into preventive maintenance mode and maintain these
well,
as we move forward.
Okay, well, I guess that would, so
So-
we're not gonna do what we've been doing the last 10 years.
Well, and Jim, another thing that,
no,
for the tanks, there's a maintenance program built in
no.
with the tank. There's not.
That-
It's not
no,
part
Well,
of
the
this.
cost isn't in this
It's a possibility.
number.
This assumes.
But we would incorporate that into our operating budget to maintain these tanks at where they are.
Okay.
And so they are kept.
But that hasn't been the case in the past.
What you're asking, Jim, did happen with, for example, the highway department. And it's very much been the way the highway department has functioned. There was, there were numbers of
trucks.
years where, yeah, the trucks were purchased on a regular basis and
250,000
rotated
for a
in and
truck.
rotated out.
Yeah, right.
Okay, there was money that indebtedness would be taken on if necessary to do the kind of paving that had to be done so that the roads were kept up.
They have a
et cetera.
plan.
That was done, okay? We went through a situation, we had a 10-year period where we had an administration that literally cut the cost of water in our town. That was part of how they maintained, a lowering of tax rate. They cut the cost of water, when in reality, they should have been increasing the cost of water.
I think from my vantage point, I think it needs to be shared. There are a lot of people to blame to where we were today.
Yep.
And we need to, for the responsible, to be responsible moving this forward from a health, safety, economic, there's a whole bunch of reasons that we need to do this. So I appreciate the time and energy that you've put in this. I mean, we are obviously not making decisions tonight by itself. This is one of many conversations to occur. Scott and I have gone out a number of times. It was one of my top priorities to connect with him and others about the infrastructure on the town, because when you drive by and get off at 87, you can see one of the towers and people go, ooh, that doesn't look great. Well, that's only one tower, and a lot of our infrastructure you can't see by just driving by it. You're not crawling in the holes and seeing the conditions that our team members are in. Working with the Department of Health, working with other agencies, making sure that we're having good, clean water for our community.
Can I just ask a question back here? Are we allowed?
It's your call.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't get off track, yeah.
No, I was just going back to what Jim was saying. It just seems odd, and this runs in deep in school districts and everything, that if you end up with a whole bunch of teachers that came in the 70s, they all exited at around the same time, and you have this huge turnover. And I'd have to agree with Jim that in this situation, you're going to sink $25 million into the infrastructure. It's all going to be brought up to par. It's all going to fall apart at the same time again. So you'd never be in this you'll never be in a rhythm where you're going to keep up the maintenance if you haven't done it by now, and you got $4 million.
But that's not really an accurate statement. It's not all gonna fall apart again at the same time. We're talking about different types of things, number one, right, between water and sewer, pump stations. I mean, when you look at some of the pump stations these guys are working at are freaking weight up block pump stations, and the station itself, I mean, today you can put a new station in the ground, nice cast concrete, it's gonna stay there, you got 60 years for the station, then it's just pump maintenance. So yeah, some things will go and have to be swapped out, but that's always true. You're always, a pump's gonna get shot, you'll have a lightning strike someplace, hit something. So it's not so much of getting to the end of the useful life of then all at once and having to,
Isn't that what we're talking about with the water towers?
Well, the water towers, that's a deteriorating situation, whereas if we don't do it, we will be spending
More money.
twice as much money.
Does
To
this
take care of
include the blue water tower as well? And the
All
one
the
on
water-
All the water towers.
All the water towers, any
Oh, the
tower
one
you
on
see.
Cumberland Head too? I haven't looked at
Every
that
water
one.
tower needs work.
Yeah.
Every tower needs
The
to be
whole
touched.
gamut.
Okay.
Everyone, all 9.
Go after the most attractive contract you can go after, because you're gonna put out, a volume of work that'll get you the best price.
Right, but back to the gentleman's point and Jim's point, right, once those tanks are done, we're up to par, yeah, then the responsibility falls over to the gentleman on my left here to make sure that, get them on a maintenance program, usually 2 or 3 years, you're in those tanks every 2 or 3 years, looking at them and say, okay,
But why hasn't that been done? I guess
Right,
with
well-
$4 million in reserves, we haven't been doing it for how
Well,
many years?
that's-
So
this
we're gonna be 10 years down the road when this bond is supposedly paid off. Everything's gonna be that 10 years older. Are we gonna be looking back at another $30 to $35 million infrastructure upgrade? Because then they're gonna be 10 years older if you don't have a plan, I guess, to replace a water tower or whatever you would need to do that.
Right, well, what I was about to say was that if you go into these tanks every 2 or 3 years, you do, you can
Identify.
identify the problems, and the smaller problems and take care of them then, your costs are so much less than having to, go back, drain a tank, clean the whole inside, it's quite the operation to do.
One of the things with the towers is that they've kind of been let to a point where typically if they would have been caught early, you could do a power wash type of thing to clean it and put a seal coat over it, you got good adhesion steel. Still, the tanks have failed to the point where we're down to bare steel. So we gotta prep them all the way to steel, work them back up, and then maintain them at that level moving forward. And it's much more doable to get them back up to where they need to be to maintain them at that point than to do, right now, we're just throwing spots on, really, patch repairs that aren't gonna really achieve us anything.
You had
And then
mentioned
one
there's going
buck-
to be a 3-year implementation of the program, but why are the expenses of the debts jumping all in the first year and maintaining a sewer rate and a water rate immediately?
Because I'm assuming that when you start the project, you're taking your borrowing. Like, so in the base water district and base sewer district, for sure, you got 2 projects there, and they're both gonna go right away, so it just jumps up and stays flat. Let me just see if I can go back here.
Wouldn't we be paying for a couple of years worth of lending that we wouldn't actually be expending the money that's going to take 3 years to get?
No, it doesn't take 3 years to finish all the projects. What I'm saying is that, you can finish a project within a year or 2, it depends on what year you start the project in. So you may not start the project until, say, 2018. Go out and borrow your money in 2018, or get it set anyway. And that's where I think the town, behoove the town to get a good financial person on that to figure, okay, what makes the most sense. in terms of that borrowing. I mean, again,
And I think it's critical to know that not all the answers are in this very moment. I mean, we're thinking,
I thought it was for public.
well, this is, but it's draft.
It's
I mean,
draft.
that's why it says draft.
Draft.
You know, I mean, we're beginning some of these conversations and moving it forward, so,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Not the capital.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Just help me understand from the assessment valuation. So obviously, there's going to be some rate users that are going to pay both. What's the percentage of the
exemption?
town of Plattsburgh? Is it like 30% will do both the
it's like
rate?
40%, I think it was, something like 40% will pay both,
Will pay both, and then the
Yes.
other 60 is going to be just
one or the
They're
other.
just water. I mean, most
All
people
the
have
sewer.
water,
Right.
and then it's 40% of those people that have water also have sewer.
And part of what we were just talking about, I mean, there's times when you use bond anticipation notes, and then there's times when you go for the bond because the rate for the bond is that attractive
Right.
that you say, let's go for the bond.
I mean-
You've got in there, I noticed, 4% assumed rate of interest on a bond.
Right.
And right now, I think, I may be wrong, but I think you can get better than 4%.
Oh, yeah, one thing I didn't want to do in here is underestimate
Right.
anything like that. That's why the assumptions on you're not gonna get any assistance and
When
everything
we're
else.
dealing with our, you know, our bonding
Right,
people, they're gonna come back to us with a game plan as to
yeah,
what's
I mean, I
the
think
best way to
that
go.
if the town
Best
decides to
way to
move
go
ahead, you would need to
forward.
sit down with them and go through this plan and say, what's our best deal on money,
Yeah,
you know? Exactly, and the town's been successful using bands, I mean, you know, Pat's been juggling those from every year now, right? So, depending on interest rates, you
mhm,
know, pay some of this down sooner, actually, a lot of those went sooner. So those are all things that need to be looked at with your financial folks. Again, though, I think that the takeaway from this is you can do a significant amount of improvements for a little impact to your average homeowner. And I do want to say too that it's not presented in here, but the median property assessment is actually lower than the average, so most people, maybe more people are going to pay less than this average. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
mhm.
RJ, could you go back to the slide where there's an error in the Cumberland Head Pump Station? What's the proper nut figure there?
I think it's, I'd have to go back and look at that. I think I have it right here though.
You
Yeah,
mean you're
right.
short about a mill or so?
No, it was two. It was, I dropped a number out of the slide for some reason. Champlain Park sewer closure is 2.2 million.
2.2?
I don't know, that was the original
Yeah,
note,
that's
right? That's the original note, so I'd have to go
Okay.
back for you. It's not in this slide.
Yeah, you were at 14,000, I thought that was.
No, it's a lot. There's a number
A
missing.
little
there.
short there.
It's hard to get to 2 that way.
Yeah.
I think you changed that when you put the draft on it.
Any other questions this evening? I know RJ is not staying in town this evening, and I want to be respectful of his time, and this is, we're gonna have more conversations about this in the future.
Thank you
And you
both.
have my phone number,
All right.
Thank you.
and I only charge
Thank you.
so much for the first minute.
We have no additional business before us, so I will call this meeting at 8:23.